control or option click or alt click again. Alright. So here's Stu, and he'll be standing in front of the whiteboard in a little bit here. And, okay, turn my little mask back on there so he goes back behind things. And the first thing I'm going to do, I think he might be a little bit tilted to the side. And it's a fairly destructive thing, so I'm going to go ahead and do Control J or Command J, duplicate Stu, lock, stock, and barrel, and turn one of them off as kind of a backup. That way if I change my mind, I was wrong. Okay, Command T. Let's turn Stu upright like that. Already looking better. And next bit. Okay, it doesn't really matter where he's at. He can be back here, he can be up here. I'm going to go ahead and have him away from the table for starters. And one of the first things that helps is, I'm going to turn my perspective grid back off here, is to make the tones in the photograph match the tones in the rest of the thing. And you'll notice that this rendering has nothing that is just black. So I'm going to add a levels adjustment here, and you can do this before or afterward. I'm going to go ahead and group that levels adjustment to Stu where it only affects him, because otherwise if I did anything like this it would affect everything. So I'm going to option click in between levels and Stu, and that way anything only affects Stu right here. And the output levels let us make the blacks lighter. So I'm going to take those back just a little bit like this, and I'm going to take the whites and dim those out just a touch. And now I can kind of adjust the overall balance of things, and this will already look a little bit better for us, because now the shades of black, there's without it, he kind of sticks out like a sore thumb. With it, just the fact that the black levels in him match everything else, much better already. So, next bit, I'm going to come down here and behind Stu, I'm going to put a layer below Stu, and I'm going to do that by, because new layers always go above, so I'm going to hold Command or Control and click New Layer, and that will put, I'll say, Foot Contact Shadow. And usually what I'll do here is go ahead and just do not much more than kind of a rough outline of the shape of the feet. Got our little shoes here. And hold Shift. And kind of think about where the shadows should be. One thing you can do is really pay attention to the shadows on the floor in the original. Even though the lighting is a little bit different, they can give you some good insight. And I'm going to go ahead and fill those with black, and then deselect, filter, blur, and Gaussian blur. I'll do that by about 2 pixels or so. And already he's got a little bit of a contact shadow, and just that right there. He's floating. He's got a little bit more connection with the ground. So that helps right away. Next thing, if we look at the shadows in here, closest shadow to him is this table, and it's casting a kind of a crazy shadow that's expanding going out that way. So I mentioned having to reuse that shape of Stu. I'm going to alt click and black out the rest of this again, because I angled him, so now it's different. And alt or option click again. Okay, I'm going to command click or control click that picture of Stu there, and come down and make another new blank layer. And I'm going to do alt backspace or option delete and fill that with black. Free transform, command T or control T, and you can use distort if you want. You can use any mixture of them. I'm just going to use the shortcuts, which is hold command or control, and you get the distort tool out of there. And we're going to go ahead and move Stu's shadow around. This will take a little bit of massaging, but it'll get us a good start on this. His shadow's going to kind of go back like this. And we'll have to tweak it and fake it and add a little bit more in there. But This will be a good start. So we'll start with that, and we'll come in and we can take a little bit of that off and a little bit of that one off, and we can maybe add a little bit that we know would be in there. Right like that. And these shadows aren't super dark and they fade out toward the end. So we'll go ahead and take the opacity down where they're about as dark as the other shadows, maybe even a little bit less because we don't want to call too much attention to them. And those are a little bit softer than ours, so we're going to go ahead and filter, blur, Gaussian blur, maybe not 2 pixels, let's try 1. Does that look about the same as that one? Not quite. Let's try half pixel. That's a whole lot better. Now, our shadow doesn't fade out like theirs does. So, this is cast shadow. We're going to add a blank layer mask, like that. We're going to take a gradient, and we're going to select that gradient as being the very first one, which is foreground to background. Black is my foreground color, and black hides, so I'm going to make sure I'm on my layer mask and make a gradient from about right here where I want the shadow to be gone by this point, and drag it back towards Stu like that. And now his shadow fades out just like all the other shadows. And now, even though he isn't interacting with the other things in the room yet, Stu is pretty firmly flying, grounded, in the room with everything else. And we could also, this thing has several shadows. We could add a second shadow if we wanted to really get crazy with Stu. But this is a pretty good start on him, and that will get us going. So I'm going to go ahead and save this and stop the video for now, and we'll come back and add more in a little bit.